If you had an iPhone, iPod Touch, or iPad in the late 2000s or early 2010s, you've definitely played Doodle Jump. The whole game looked like it had been drawn in a school notebook. You controlled a little creature called the Doodler, tilted your phone left and right, bounced upward across an endless stack of platforms, grabbed springs and jetpacks, avoided black holes and monsters, and tried not to fall off the bottom of the screen. That was basically the entire game. Just tilt, jump, survive, repeat.
And there, as you can see, I got a power up. I want to avoid any monsters that I see.
And somehow, that tiny idea became one of the defining mobile games of the App Store era. For a while, Doodle Jump wasn't just popular, it was everywhere. Doodle Jump was created by brothers Igor and Marko Pusinjak, who founded Lima Sky in July 2008. The company was tiny, and Doodle Jump itself was built incredibly fast. Time later reported that the game was created by the two brothers over roughly 3 months in 2009. It launched on iPhone in March 2009. The basic pitch was perfect for the time. A one thumb, one screen, instantly understandable game that used the iPhone's accelerometer in a way that actually felt natural. That made it ideal for the early App Store, when touch and tilt controls still felt fresh and users were hungry for simple games that could hook them in seconds. And the rise was fairly fast. By December 2009, the game had already crossed the 1 billion download mark. Then the numbers started getting ridiculous. Just a month later, in January 2010, Business Insider reported that Doodle Jump had sold about 1.85 million copies at 99 cents each, which was about $1.28 million after Apple's 30% cut. By March 2010, PocketGamer.biz reported the game had reached 3 million App Store sales, and Mobile Crunch estimated the brothers had made around $2.08 million from App Store performance by that point. Then just a month later, in April 2010, Kotaku reported the game had passed 4 million paid downloads. This was one of the clearest early examples of two independent developers making real money on the App Store without a giant publisher behind them. The early success of Doodle Jump is the reason it matters historically. It was one of the first mobile games that proved a tiny team could build a global hit. Forbes reported in April 2010 that the game had been downloaded more than 3.5 million times and was claiming to be the most downloaded paid iPhone app ever at that point. Doodle Jump also had unusual staying power. By March 2013, the game had still not left the iPhone Top 50 paid games chart since its release in July 2009, and had spent almost the entire time in the top 20 paid games. This is absolutely insane longevity for a paid mobile game. Most mobile hits spike and disappear. Doodle Jump just sat in the charts month after month, year after year, quietly printing money. The franchise kept expanding too. Android and BlackBerry versions arrived on March 2, 2010. Symbian followed on May 1, 2010. Windows Phone 7 came in June 2011, iPad in September 2011, and later the brand spread to Kinect, DS, 3DS, arcade machines, and even TV-based versions. By March 2011, GameSpot reported that Doodle Jump had hit 10 million downloads. By December 2011, the game had sold 10 million copies over iTunes and Google Play, with around 15 million downloads across platforms, according to later summaries. Which is absolutely enormous for a mobile game that started as a 99-cent sketchbook-style performer. And that was the real peak of Doodle Jump. Not a single chart moment, but a long stretch from roughly 2009 to 2013, where it felt permanent. The game was showing up in pop culture, from references on TV to celebrity fashion mentions highlighted on its App Store page.
I love games, but I only like the really simple ones. Doodle Jump. Like really
Doodle
vintage.
Jump, that's like iPod Touch.
I know.
Any of those games give you anxiety at all?
No, they're all to reduce anxiety.
The game's sticky design helped a lot. There was no final level, so every run felt like one more shot at beating your score. The hand-drawn art style also made it instantly recognizable. And because it ran well on phones at the time, it spread fast through word of mouth.
It's one of those games that you pick up and you just really struggle to put it down, especially if you're competing with friends to see who can set and break the high score.
Doodle Jump was simple enough for almost anyone to understand, and hard enough that people kept handing their phones to friends saying, "Try this." Even after the first App Store gold rush cooled off, Doodle Jump was still performing. PocketGamer.biz reported in 2013 that the iPhone version was still generating about $20,000 per week in revenue, while Android and iPad versions added smaller amounts on top. For a 4-year-old mobile game, that's still extremely strong. In 2016, Lima Sky announced a Skills partnership and said Doodle Jump had more than 10 million monthly players. Other coverage of the same deal also described the game as having been downloaded more than 200 million times at that point. So even 7 years after launch, Doodle Jump was still big enough to support licensing, tournaments, and an attempted esports angle. But unfortunately, just like most mobile games in the 2010s era, Doodle Jump eventually begins to decline. It didn't really have a drastic crash like Flappy Bird did. Its fall was slower and more structural. The first reason is that the entire mobile market changed underneath it. Doodle Jump was built for the paid app era when users were happy to spend 99 cents upfront for a polished game. By the late 2010s, however, that model had been pushed aside by free-to-play giants built around ads, cosmetics, events, retention loops, and in-app purchases. A minimalist premium arcade game could still survive, but it was no longer the center of the industry. This is partly due to the market shift, and partly visible in Doodle Jump's own store evolution, where the modern versions emphasize free downloads and in-app purchases instead of the original simple premium model. The second reason is that Doodle Jump's formula, while brilliant, was also easy for the market to absorb and move past. Once tilt-based, endless climbing stopped feeling new, the broader audience moved on to the next wave of mobile mechanics. Temple Run pushed endless running, Candy Crush leaned towards the matching game style obsession, Clash of Clans pushed long-term progression and monetization. Doodle Jump was still elegant, but elegance is not always enough when the market starts rewarding bigger retention systems and more aggressive monetization. Its strength, however, was that it stayed simple. Unfortunately, its weakness was also that it stayed simple. There's also a sequel timing problem. For such a famous game, Lima Sky waited a very long time to release a true sequel. Doodle Jump 2 did not arrive until December the 20th, 2020, more than 11 years after the original iPhone launch. That's an insanely huge gap in mobile years. By then, the App Store had changed several times over, entire genres had risen and fallen, and Doodle Jump had shifted from current obsession to a nostalgic classic. The sequel gave the brand fresh life, but it arrived in a market where being one of the originals was a legacy advantage, not a chart-dominating strategy. And the monetization problem got worse over time. The current App Store and Google Play listings make clear that modern Doodle Jump is no longer just the original one-time purchase product people remember. It now includes in-app purchases and free download variants. User reviews on newer entries like Doodle Jump 2 repeatedly complain about ads, and the Apple Arcade release of Doodle Jump 2 Plus in February 2025 is notable specifically because Apple Arcade titles remove ads and microtransactions. That alone tells you something about the mobile environment that the franchise has had to adapt to. Doodle Jump didn't become hated, but it did become more like the rest of the mobile market, and part of its original charm was that it felt clean and original. The game went from defining the App Store to barely hanging on by a small string. Third-party analytics currently estimate roughly 60,000 downloads per month in 2026 and less than $5,000 in monthly revenue. In 2010, millions of people were buying it. In 2016, it still had 10 million monthly players. In 2026, however, it survives more as an enduring classic rather than a dominating force. Still, Doodle Jump's story doesn't end as a failure. It ends as one of the most important mobile games ever made. It helped prove the App Store could mint millionaires. It showed how powerful simple controls and a strong loop could be. Also, not to mention, it survived a lot longer than most mobile hits. It spread across platforms, merchandise, arcades, and sequels. And it still has enough brand value that Lima Sky continues to support it, and Apple Arcade still sees value in a premium version of the sequel in 2025. Most mobile games disappear completely. Doodle Jump aged into a classic. At least they didn't milk it for everything it's worth, like games such as Angry Birds, which I'll talk on in a later video. So as for the main takeaway, Doodle Jump wasn't built to dominate the modern app economy. It was built for a simpler era, and in that era, it was nearly perfect.